Alright, ladies and gentlemen, in this next video we are diving on into our concept, which we focus now on a lot of the key symbolism and terminology within geometry. So let's keep this short and sweet and get right to it. So first and foremost, let's talk about the three undefined terms of geometry one more time. They are points, lines, and planes. Technically they are undefined, but they don't have formal definitions, but there's at least something that we can give them in terms of a description. So for a point, our symbol is just a dot. We would classify it as point A just as such, and we think of it just as the simplest figure studied in geometry. For our lines, as we see here, our lines has two arrows. Why does it have two arrows? Because it goes on infinite, all right? It goes on infinite. We would classify it looking at a label like this. So if we have point B and point C that lie on the line, this could be considered line BC or line CB, and we would write it as BC or CB with a line and two arrows on top, okay? And our plane, again, our last point of our last undefined term of geometry, we would just consider it as plane D. You'll see it in a couple different ways. You can label a plane, all right, by just a simple label here. And I don't think D is a point. D is not a point on the plane. It is a label for a point, all right? It is a label for a point. And so what we may see, however, though, is I want you to kind of think about this. If I have a plane, all right, I try to keep this the same on over here. I have a plane here, and there's a point A, there's a point B, and there's a point C, all on this particular plane. I could also call this plane ABC. All right, so I could just call it plane ABC. So you can classify it by the label that it gives you or by three non-collinear points. When we think of space, I just want you to kind of think of the set of all points. All right, space, just the set of all points. So I just said the word collinear. So what is collinear? Collinear means points on the same line. Co meaning together, linear meaning on the same line, right? Focusing on what's on the line itself. Or likewise, we have coplanar. Coplanar just simply means points on the same plane. Any three non-collinear points can create a plane. Any three non-collinear points can create a plane. We have ourselves an endpoint, in which in this case just is the end of a segment or kind of the beginning of a ray. So speaking of our segment, here's our segment in terms of a symbol. We would label it just as so, line segment AB, or we go in reverse, BA. With point A and point B, I write it as AB with a bar up top. Notice the difference between the line and the line segment. Arrows mean line for going on forever. Line segment means it has endpoints, and it does not go on forever. For our ray, we focus it on using the arrow. The arrow is our symbol for ray. If the end point is S and another point on the ray is T, then I would label it as ray ST. Whoops, ray ST. And notice how I wrote it in red right next to it as well too. As you kind of look on over here, ray ST with the one single arrow always kind of going to the right for that ray. You have to name a ray using its endpoint. You cannot switch them back and forth like we can for segments and for lines, because then it doesn't describe to us where it starts. And last but not least, our opposite rays. Our opposite rays are just two rays that share the same endpoint to form a line. We would have ray DF and ray DE as being opposite rays, and you would just classify them as DF and DE as being opposite rays.